good evening. You're listening live to the Too Extreme Horror Show. I'm your host, Rob. My guest with me at this time is the real Dr. V. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Welcome back. I should say,
Back
just
for
here.
the attack, as Dawkins would say. And I have to tell you, we're trying to be serious, but it's turning into a real bit of a crap fest this evening because we're covering, instead of our top 10, whatever we'd be doing tonight or watch along, we decided to cover a movie that I would have a bone to pick with because while it may be described as a horror movie, it's not, but whatever. It's called The Babysitter and it has Miss Weaving in it, and it's a Netflix something that you can currently find because I watched this last night. Doctor, I encourage you to see this movie. Do you know why?
Because it has some hot people in it.
There's a lot of lickable abs in this movie. It's basically about a 12-year-old boy's, oh
Wet
gosh, what's
dream.
the word I'm trying to say? Nocturnal dreams, if we should say, in a G-rated manner. Yeah, this is just a really goofy movie directed by a guy named McG. Some people might follow. I'm not in the loop with the Hollywood types, so I don't really care. I know he's done a lot of directing of movies and videos and stuff. So the premise is that he's a 12-year-old boy. He's on the verge of adolescence. He's got a neighbor girl his age that they're sweet on each other and it's cute and it's nice. But his babysitter is this somewhat attractive person who looks like she could be in college or in high school. And it's funny because on the bus, there's a scene early on where his friend says to him, "Hey, when you go to bed at night, she's probably having relations with people that she invites over. Why don't you stay up and watch them?" And he's like, "No." And that's kind of really the whole premise of this movie. There's nothing more to it than that. And that the beauty in that is the simplicity of it. But I will have to say this, Doctor, you haven't seen this movie, have you?
I've seen parts of it, not all of it.
I see. Yeah, well, we've got a lot of people hopping in right now. We're up to six or seven. We've got Ed's in channel, Eric, Giant African Facefly is in as well. Good evening. Underworld Dream. Hey, you watched it and you loved it? I did too, because normally most Netflix is. Well, Netflix has a wide variety of programming that appeals to all people of all ages and of all backgrounds. And for me, this movie I thought had a really silly trailer to it, and I just put it on to watch. And it was one of those movies I started watching it, and I will tell you this: the first half hour of this movie, it actually sets up where it could be like a horror movie, um, and then it, of course, turns comedy. And if you accept that, and that doesn't upset you watching the rest of the movie, I will say that as a comedy movie, it's done well. But it cannot be both. That's an issue that I have because to me, there's no such thing as horror comedies or comedy horrors. It's one or the other. And this one is not horrific in any means.
Well, don't call it horror comedy. Call it dark comedy. Dark. That's what it is. Dark humor.
A little too extreme dark humor, perhaps.
Oh, if you're a 12-year-old, yeah.
Yeah. So this movie's got a lot of hot people in it. It's like I say, it's a pretty film. But honestly, the surprise to this movie to me is not what happens or the outcome, because it has a happy ending and a sequel's being made, by the way. It's the fact that the lady Miss Weaving, who's Hugo Weaving's daughter, so she
Our
looks like an
niece.
elf, but it's intentional. Niece, whatever. She's in the bloodlines, and
Yep.
elven bloodlines run strong with this one because she totally nails this role as far as being not a snobby girl at that age, not a dumb girl, not a nerdy girl. She's fun. She listens. She doesn't make fun of you. And you watch for this first half hour of the 12-year-old, and I'll call her 20. I don't know what her age is supposed to be. This 12-year-old and this 20-year-old getting along as human beings on a very good level where she's not like, ooh, gross, or you're so nice, you're so sweet, you're the best friend. None of that stuff that makes you want to puke as a guy, right? You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
when things start to go downhill, and they do, it's funny how that changes, but the element of that relationship is actually pretty strong in this movie. So it gives it a bit of a dimension to it that you wouldn't normally expect from these dark comedy type of movies. Yeah. Bottom line, is she
And from
naked? Well, if you want to know, you'll have to watch. Ha 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 ha, or listen to the entire review, which I will see at the end.
that's not funny.
And then why'd you laugh? Uh-oh,
That's
here
making
comes some
fun of you.
images of hot people. I'm starting to load up. Yeah, so anyway, like I say, this kid's got some bullies, and the bullies are kind of funny. One of the bullies looks like Gene Simmons from back in the '80s when they took the makeup off with really weird hair. And the main bad guy, he wears a headband and he does these weird dances and makes these stupid statements. So it's not like bullying that you go, "Oh my God, that's horrible. Oh my God, that's so offensive." It's kind of silly, stupid that you laugh at it. But a lot of comedies or movies that profess to be comedies just aren't. They'll have one or two lines that they think are smart or intelligent or funny, and it's just not. And I think funny comes from the performances of the characters in here and the tone that they set up. But without having this kind of interesting setup at the beginning, I don't think you could have a funny comedy all the way through. The fact that it sets up as a horror one gets you sucked in, and then they do an about face, and you're like, okay. Um, so, Doctor, since you haven't seen it, why don't you ask me some questions and allow me to answer them for you?
Okay, we already know. We already got the question. Is there any buoys in this movie?
There's a lot of hot flesh in this movie.
Okay.
Think about our G rating for YouTube censors too, sir. Think of that when you ask your questions, please.
Hmm.
There's car foo, there's foghat foo, and you know what else there is, sir? There's Billy Jack foo in this movie. So for those of you that don't know, there was a popular movie, kind of a grindhouse type flick called Billy Jack. I think it was in the mid '70s. It's got a guy with great mutton chops and a hat on, and there's a famous scene where he's like saying to a bad guy, "Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take this right foot of mine. I'm gonna kick you upside the nose, and you know what?" And the bad guy's like, "What?" He's like, "There's nothing you can do about it." And then he does his little martial arts thing or whatever about it, and you're like, "Oh wow, that's cool."
Yeah,
And I know you know Billy Jack.
definitely. Billy Jack is great. Billy Jack goes to Washington. The first one to me has always been the best one.
Absolutely, absolutely. The next one was just a cash grab, as like they all are. But anyway,
Yeah,
it actually is an integral part of this movie because typical 12-year-old stuff, he's coming of age, he's a little awkward adolescence, he's starting to understand that he's getting urges and he's getting feelings that he didn't have maybe a year or so ago, and he sees what's bringing him about, and it's not just his babysitter's body, it's also the fact that she treats him really well. And while he's really cute on his neighbor and they obviously are attracted to each other, this is a woman and she's not a girl. And so he's intrigued by this idea that, hey, we have this great relationship. My parents are going out of town and it's like a date night for the parents. So the babysitter is like, okay, we'll come over and we're going to party. And this babysitter is like the coolest babysitter of all time. So let me ask you this, Doctor, before you ask me something. Have you ever had a babysitter?
actually, no, I didn't. Unless you count my older siblings being babysitters.
Yeah, that doesn't count.
Yeah, exactly. I never had the hot experience. The hot neighbor that's like I could crush on. No, I never had that stuff.
I did, but unfortunately, I was about 6 or 7 at the time instead of 11 or
Right?
12.
Well,
So,
you gotta start. You gotta start at some age, so you start a little earlier.
yeah, so I mean, yeah, it's a little unbelievable, but in a way, like if you've had a babysitter, you can kind of understand all this. But um, they get to the house and they're partying, and it's like a date night. It's like the ultimate date. You're watching this going, nothing could ever be better than actual relations with this woman if you're this 12-year-old kid. They're cooking together. They have this little nerd exchange in the kitchen where they're talking about, who are their top five in space would be. And there's even a romantic scene in that at the end of the movie where they kind of go back and reference it. So she nerds out. So she's smart, she's cute, she's funny, she's hip. She's not a ball buster or anything like that at all. They're watching Billy Jack on a digital projection outside in the guy's yard, and they're standing in front of there, like making these little lines about it and stuff. So they're popping for each other hard on that. And again, Miss Weaving's delivery in this is fantastic. A lot of the credit of this movie goes to her. Typically, I would say, Doctor, that when you have kids in a movie or young people or younger people trying to play younger people, a lot of times how good a movie's going to be is based off their performances. And while they're good, this is all about the babysitter, and it's a smart move that they made it seem that way. So Give me something. Give me something to talk about, Doctor. You haven't seen it. I don't want to spoil it, but ask me a question.
Well, now the trailer shows them slamming the. Well, first of all, did you watch the trailer before you watched this movie
Say again?
on Netflix? Did you watch the trailer first, preview, or did you just go right in head, head in first blind, not watching the trailer whatsoever?
I went in there stone cold, sir.
So they get the point where like they invite there's babysitters down there. She has her friends over, and they bring that guy over. But at that moment, did you expect what happened next when she basically took the knives
Yeah.
and just stabbed him?
Yeah. Because the one scene where it starts getting unbelievable is there's a scene still in about the first act of the movie where at the kid's school, he's watching and he sees through the fence at the liquor place this kind of nerdy guy coming out. It's like a little lottery store, like a 7-Eleven or whatnot. And she's being really nice to the guy or whatever and kind of sweet. And you're like, what's going on? This kind of doesn't make sense. Does she only go after nerds? Because that never really happens. You know what I'm saying? Usually, I mean, honestly, let's be real. She'd have her pick of the litter and she knows it. But her performance seems really genuine. So for me, it's again you're 30 minutes into the movie. He's the boy's in his bed and he's texting his friend who is a girl, his neighbor, and they're texting back and forth. And she's kind of cute. You can tell she's kind of dulled down a little bit to look young, but she gets pretty at the end of the movie. But the kid goes down there to watch him, and like I say, that's the scene where things really start to go bad. So yeah, they're partying, they're playing Foghat. I just want to make love to you. Great, great, great rock tune. They're dancing. They got the disco ball going. I mean, this thing is just like the ultimate. I mean, it's like total Fantasyland, and it ends really abruptly because he sees her, and he sees her group of people come in the house, and they're hot people in there. There's like Bella Thorne. There's some guy that looks like a much darker haired Christian Bale, with real lickable abs. You get the
Robbie Mel. Yeah.
yeah, you may know him. I don't. I just know him as he reminded me of American Psycho, the way he was
Yeah,
dressed.
yeah, yeah. Robbie Amell is Stephen Amell's first cousin.
They have
So
a
they got a lot of A-list celebrities in there.
yeah, I mean, they have an Asian. I don't know if you'd call her a fetish girl type of outfit or character, and then they got this whiny black guy. I don't know if he's supposed to be like a comedy guy. I mean, I don't know these people from where they come from. Some people may be more intimately familiar. I've heard the name Bella Thorne before, but yeah. So he's sitting there on the stairs and he's watching them, and they're having a conversation, and so they bring in the nerdy guy that he saw earlier with him, and they're playing spin the bottle. And so they go around and they show, people kissing each other, and it gets kind of hot, gets kind of erotic, it gets kind of, like spin the bottle. Um, and so, of
Hmm.
course, the nerdy guy, gets last, and so she's got to go over and she's got to kiss him. So she kisses everybody, makes out with the girl and the other guys. So she goes up to the guy and she's like, "Look, don't be scared." And he's like, "There's other people in here. This isn't right." And she's like, "Look, I know you're nervous. Just close your eyes, act like they're not here." And he's like, "But they are." And she goes, "But do you trust me?" And he's like, and he just closes his eyes because he knows he's like maybe a 4 at best, honestly. And she's like, 9, 10 in his book. So she goes to put the whammy on it, and the way she kissed everybody else, you're waiting to see what happens. So she goes to kiss him. She draws him in, you know, nice and tight. Then all of a sudden she pulls out these two sacrificial looking daggers and just drives them through this dude's skull, and blood starts gushing everywhere. It's not like she just hit an artery either. It's like the fire hydrant lost its top and went off. It's going everywhere, and you're like, uh oh, what the hell? But yeah, I kind of knew that was going to happen. So yeah. Anyway, it's like this is where the movie turns into a comedy.
Well, yeah, especially when you get to Sonya chasing after him. She was, I think that was the goth chick. The one that
Sure, why
she
not?
into I think into the basement where she chases him. The one that chased him into the basement,
Well, yeah,
and
but
then he
before,
used the bug spray.
yeah, and it's kind of creative in a way because they show the parents just a little bit, and the parents, of course, aren't paying attention to the kid at all, and the mom's kind of hot too, and the dude is too, and he's afraid to drive. So he's like, "Mom, am I a you know what the The female genitalia word. God, I'm trying to be so PC this evening. I don't know why. It's more fun, I guess, to try hard sometimes. But the mom's killing spiders underneath the house and setting traps and stuff. So of course it's a callback because it's not useless information. This is what's going to happen. But before that, he runs upstairs to his bed and he acts like he's asleep. And we already know he's afraid of getting shots from a scene earlier at the beginning of the movie. So
Mm-hmm.
she goes up to his room and supposedly, because she had poured him a double like of scotch or something to make him go to bed earlier. They each had a drink each and were talking. And so supposedly he's drugged, but you don't know this because she goes to take his blood out because they need the blood of like an innocent to perform this satanic ritual to get something. And she
Yep.
has this like Book of the Dead with her. And, you can see him wincing or whatever like that, but they take the blood and they go downstairs. And then he's trying to like escape, but of course she's smart. She knows him. And it's pretty interesting. They have this little inside thing where, like, if he doesn't look at her and turns his head to the right, she knows he's lying. So he figures that out. But yeah, he ends up kind of sort of escaping, and this is where it kind of turns into like a Benny Hill free for all, where everybody's trying to chase him and kill him. And of course, everybody kind of starts dying in a really weird way. The black guy chases him up the stairs, accidentally falls on a toy that you saw out there earlier, and gets gored really viciously through the neck.
Yep, and right the throat. Yep. I
Yeah.
mean, Bella Thorne, she went out with a bang too.
Well, she went in with a bang because she got shot in the she got shot in the left boob, breast area, and she keeps referencing all that. So with the
It's
sequel
like, how
being
dare
made,
you shot me in the boob?
yeah, and she's like, no, I won't be ugly with ugly people and da da da. And it just doesn't happen with hot people. And you're like, it's stupid and it's dumb, but actually her delivery is kind of funny. And this is where if you have a strong role, it makes other people stronger around you. Because if Miss Weaving wasn't that good, this would kind of come off as sort of lame, but it sort of works. And then that's where you see him kind of escaping, running from the house, and he crawls underneath the house, and the goth chick's going underneath it. And what's cool is it's a bunch of tarantulas under the house, so he climbs up underneath a blanket that was in there that his mom had threw in there earlier or whatever, and she comes in, she's got like a knife and she's gonna kill him or whatever, and she's not afraid of the tarantulas and all that. But there's a real cool shot where he's like laying there and you can kind of see the light going through the blanket onto him, and you see this the shadow outline of a tarantula crawling up on top of it, which is kind of funny. Um, but then, of course, she knows it's him, and he goes to shoot her with the giant firecracker, but misses,
Yep.
but somehow manages to escape because she gets her hands caught in the traps, and she's like, "Oh, my nails!" And as soon as he gets out, he power drills it close, and she's coming, but the bug spray's left in there and blows up.
Yep. So
It's so stupid. It's so dumb.
yeah, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, the token did die
Like, like,
first, giant.
like this kid is he's like you're basically making this kid out to be like he's a MacGyver.
It's kind of like that. It's almost unbelievable because then you get the ab licking guy or lick his abs guy chasing him, and this guy's kind of like sweet on him, like, dude, I'm really sorry we got to do this, and you almost kind of believe him too. But in the middle of chasing him around and all that, because he's like the high school football player, quarterback jock, this
Yeah.
bully kid shows up without his Gene Simmons posse guys, and he starts talking crap, and there was a scene in there where the abs guy's chasing him, and he remembers the advice that Miss Weaving gave him as a babysitter about bullies. Well, if they're chasing you, you just fall down, and when they trip over you, you stand up and you kick them in the balls, right in the jimmy. And because that's true, ball shot levels all the odds, right?
You're talking about the treehouse scene, right?
Oh, this is right before the treehouse scene, I think,
Oh yeah.
if I got the
Mm.
right order, because he did that, and that's where the ablicking guy gets the respect of him a little bit, and it just keeps growing. So when the bully shows up, he's telling the bully, he's like, "Hey, people are trying to kill me. You got to call the cops," because everybody had killed the cops earlier, so this isn't going to end well. We glossed over that, and so the guy goes to say something to him, and they just kind of shoves him down, says something stupid, but he at least stood up for himself, and the guy's like, man, you really stood up for yourself. I'm really proud of you. And it's like a father or something. And this kid's like, what?
I know, right?
He's chasing them. And then they get to the treehouse. So this is a the the treehouse symbolizes the coming of age adolescent phase that the young gentleman is in, as he's going from a young man who's bonding with his father to not bonding successfully with his father figure due to the fact that he's not liking driving and they're taking down the oh shut up, we don't try to review like that. He's going up into the treehouse and all that, but the guy's an athlete, so he's just got the jeans on because he ripped his shirt off earlier because he knows he's hot, and he gets up there, and there's a tussle ensues, no shenanigans, and a dude just kind of like falls down in a really awkward way and lynches himself. It's so
let's
stupid.
let's just let's just say he went out for a swing.
He did. Sometimes, though, the longer you can extend things out, you just give somebody enough rope to hang themselves with, and they make a mistake, and that's what happened here.
Talk about a lynching.
Jane Lynch. She would not have made this movie better. So of course everybody dies. It appears in her posse. At least they appear to be dead, or gravely injured. Because ultimately, fast forward through it, it comes down to him and the babysitter. And so she's got the shotgun. She's going after him. He runs over. It's kind of like Halloween in a way. He runs over to across the street to the house of his neighbor friend, and they're hiding from her. And so there's a little like cat and mouse to the girl's house and stuff too. And then there's a cute little scene where he says something, and then the girl's like, "Oh, that's sweet," and she kisses him. Because of course girls do all the kissing. Guys can't do anything these days without a consent form, even if they're 12. Um, so he's like, you know what? When we kiss again, we'll make out or something. So he runs out of the house yelling, "Come get me!" and blah blah blah. And they go back to the house, and then there's the final confrontation. And since you haven't seen it, all I'm gonna say is, you are a James Bond fan, are you not, sir?
Well, I was, but now he's not 007 anymore.
True, but what was the last movie we did? Do you remember for the Two Extreme Horror Show? Actually, an extreme classic. I'll give you a hint. It was a monster movie.
Was it a monster one?
Yeah, well, the
No.
last one we did
Well, the last one we did was oh yeah, you're talking about with Ben.
with
I
Dracula.
Live Dead.
Well,
Oh no,
before that, we did uh,
Dracula.
the Hammer
Peter Cushing's
version from
Dracula.
1958. The version I like with Christopher Lee. Yeah, a Hammer film. And Christopher Lee was in what great James Bond film? Do you remember? We covered this
Was that man?
early on in the beginning
This was Man with
stages
the
of the
Golden Gun,
Extreme
wasn't
Movie
this?
Show. The Man with the Golden Gun. And what's the famous dumb scene in there with Sergeant Pepper in there in the car? No, excuse
Oh,
me. It's Live and Let Die, I believe, if I'm correct. Where they have the
maybe it is.
stupid
I can't.
car that does the big jump and does like the 360 turn in the air over the river. I thought it was Man with the Golden Gun. Bond's got me so numb with how bad the movies have been.
It's with the Buford T. Justice or is or
Yeah,
because
yeah,
there's
him. Not quite him, but that
well
rip-off
yeah no
character.
yeah you rip up character of him yeah
That's what this kid does. He goes and he gets a car that because he can't drive, so of course he's overcoming his fears, and he drives and he kind of hits the curve into their house, and it does like this stupid little twist, takes out the entire front porch and living room of the house, and just lands on her. And so there's a scene at the end where they're having this little heart to heart, and she's kind of like got the car up to her kneecaps, and they're talking about stuff. And he's like, "I'm not the first guy. You've done this before. Woe is me." It's basically him saying, "Yo, I'm kicking you to the curb. I'm moving on with my 12-year-old." That sounds weird to say it, but in context of the film, I think we all know what I'm saying. And she
yeah.
looks genuinely sad or whatever. Of course, you can't trust her because she's a Satanist and wanted to kill you, or does she? Because she's technically not dead at the end of the film, and neither is the
Wasn't she?
Bella Thorne character.
I thought she was originally trying to recruit him.
Well, she said she did the classic, well, we could run off together and we could be together forever sort of kind of thing or whatever. And he's like, yeah, I can't trust you because you
Because he
tried stealing my blood. A 20-year-old could slip you a Mickey and, nobody says anything, but God forbid that happens the other way around these days. I mean, equality. I'm sorry. I'm trying to keep a straight face, but this movie's so silly, Doctor. You've got to watch it. I know this is hard for you to talk about because you haven't seen it, but no, honestly, we talked about Stripes a little earlier tonight. It was a great buddy film. This movie's got great chemistry in it. I'm not saying it's the greatest film of all time, but for a comedy that's a bit surprising, it's enjoyable enough, in my opinion, worth watching. Enough for us to talk about it here on the Extreme Movie Show. And frankly,
So you're
like I
saying
say,
this?
it's a great setup. What's
So
that?
you're saying this movie's so horrible that it slays you? Get that stabbing in the side from laughing too hard.
It's a shot in the dark, one step away from you, and I'll stop with the Aussie references. Now, this movie's okay. I mean, it's the type of film where if it came out in the 80s, a lot of people would be talking about it, how it's just
Oh
stupid, dumb
yeah,
fun.
yeah.
It's that kind of a film. It's not like
It
the
sounds
woke
it
comedies
sounds
today,
like it sounds like Sleepaway Camp, kind of.
with a bit more polish. I'm gonna go through some of the comments here before we start calling it nights. We wrap it up. Yeah. Eric Breen
Street
says
fondue.
what? Yeah. Yeah, it's on Netflix. I watched it last night. Ed Burr watched it and said she was not hot. Um, Ed, I think she falls in the category of total smash, but then a level three kind of does too, just depending on how many adult beverages you may consume. So, keep that for what it is. She's that skinny, kind of idealistic. She has a look kind of thing, bright eyes, blonde hair, blue eyed sort of look to her. She's Australian, I think. I think the Weavings are Australian. Is that right, Doctor?
Weaving, yeah, yeah. It's Australian. That's where she got her started from. Was actually on like actual like their like drama shows they had over there,
Right.
shows.
Yeah.
Then she went on to guest star on Ash vs. the Evil Dead season 3. She was in, yeah,
The
season
last
3.
one. Yeah. Yeah. So she's been in a couple things. I
Oh
didn't
no,
really notice
no,
her.
season. Sorry, my bad. Season 2, as it was. She
Yeah.
was in that one.
Well, it's one of those things where like Underworld Dreams sang, and I agree with this comment. This movie made me love the good guy, the bad guys, and even the minor characters. It's true. You're almost not. It's not evil. It's not horrific because you find yourself enjoying
Oh,
it and rooting it. You just understand their sides and you see where the comedy comes from. It comes from exaggeration. It's a nice little hook setup, which as an adolescent, it draws you in. So the violence isn't gory, scary. It's over the top, silly kind of violence. And so I think sometimes people get those tones a little mixed. So if you look at this, like I say, straight as one type of film or the other, it's not going to work. Ultimately, it's a comedy, though. That's what it's meant to
uh,
be. It's not
now
too
see,
deep.
if they're gonna do this, and they should do like a whole. They should give it the Freddy, or not the Freddy treatment, but give it the Jason or the Michael Myers treatment for these series. And just have a whole line of just where she just keeps coming back killing people.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what they do with the sequel because I'll watch it. I don't know if it'll be as fresh as this. I don't know how the writing will be. Hopefully, it won't be a disappointment. Um, all I gotta say is that it's rare for me to find something, and we've discussed this before with Anglin from I Love Comics on Top 10 Tuesdays, his Old Man Comics channel that he's got, and Homegrown Tourist. Those of you who may forget who he is, he's still around. It's hard for me to really watch a lot of stuff these days, the way my time is and all that. So we're usually covering stuff that we've seen before, or that, like for example, you're interested in seeing, or some of the fans are. And so for me, I was surprised to find something that I can go, hey, it's about time Rob does an actual Netflix movie review because frankly, most of it's not that entertaining, or I get a couple episodes into a series and I go, meh. And I'd rather talk about something that's enjoyable or has an interesting idea about it rather than something that's average, because average is not extreme. So, doctor, give it to me. Give it to the fans. What's the final diagnosis for the babysitter based on what we've discussed?
This
Any
sounds
particular medical recommendations to go with it?
medical radiations. Oh well, make sure you drink plenty of fluids. Once you start losing a quart of blood, you're gonna keep maybe have an extra pack of blood with you just in case. To filter back in. Be smart. Um, yeah. Don't drink any strange drinks at all. Don't trust a babysitter, obviously. Um, yeah. Just because a girl's hot doesn't mean she won't kill you. That's the one thing I got from this movie.
They'll all kill you, sir.
Yes.
This is a question of how.
Some slow, some fast.
Hmm. Well, it'll
You're
be
only a
interesting.
victim,
This, go ahead.
and I'll just say this: this kid learn at 12 years old. You're only a victim if you allow yourself to be a victim.
Sir, I love the fact that you pointed out assertiveness in a young individual. That deserves another whammy. That is well done because we don't really get into the self sufficiency unless we're being somewhat serious with some of the adult films. But you're absolutely right. Coming of age, it's shown that he does do this not by having sex with her or relations with the other girl or anything. It's the fact that he attempts to stand up for himself. In a lot of ways, he asserts himself on his environment for good, bad, or otherwise. And we'll see how that appears in the second film. Now, what I would love a movie like this to do to go really over the top for the next film, because you can't lessen what goes on in the movie. You always have to go over the top or do a completely different spin on it for it to work. It would be interesting if maybe at the end of the movie it's a situation where these two hook up somehow, some way. I don't know. And I assume that his girlfriend, the girl across the street, is going to be involved. But maybe something happens with the babysitter, and these two little 12-year-olds become the ones that do it, or they get a hold of the satanic book because you're going to get kind of like a background origin story of what's going on with the whole occult angle to it. I imagine just to flesh it out a bit, but I don't know how that's really relevant to it other than she made her kill somebody. So it appears we're going to have to know what her reactions are and what made her do this and what turned a babysitter into such a nefarious character. Now, for God's sakes, it was just a convenient setup to show a skinny little hot chick and a 12-year-old kind of have a little bit of that awkward chemistry between them. And I'm telling you, it works in this movie. Final
It would
thoughts.
be it would be cool for the sequel if they actually were to bring back whoever these group of teenagers made a deal with comes to collect,
A
and he
collector
get
reference.
yeah. Basically, they come to collect because they didn't hold their end of the bargain.
I'm wondering if the person who comes to collect them doesn't appear at the crossroads. I'm just
Who
saying because
knows?
it's an occult reference. I mean, his name could be Mr. Johnson, first name Robert, perhaps. There's definitely some satanic stuff going on with that. Yeah, it'd be interesting. Or maybe they're just really, really old people, and to stay young, they have to kill and take the blood of the innocent. It could be that angle as well, sir. There's so many angles they could go with this. So,
Sounds.
I, to answer giant African faceless fly, answer is so no areola then. Well, it depends on how good your imagination is. That's all I'll say.
Well, who
No,
knows?
you don't get any hardcore skin in this. No, not with a 12-year-old. That'd have been a
Oh
little
no, no,
extreme. But she's got a
no. You're
great
not.
belly button. And she dresses like out of the 70s. I mean, what more could you want as a tease? That's what this movie is. It's
I'll
it's a
just have to
pleasant
say
tease, and
this:
you say, okay, do
you're
it to me.
a lot of times though. I'll tell you this though: 9 times out of 10, you don't. You would rather. Your imagination is better than what you get. You say
Yeah, but getting
you're
it's
gonna say,
still fun.
yeah. So don't you don't necessarily see the need to see everything in order to enjoy a movie.
That's a complete no, Giant. There's absolutely zero nudity in this film. Um, I don't know if this actually was a wide release or something. I think it was a movie that got made and was going through the distribution channels, and then Netflix picked up the option on it to show it, something along those lines.
Yeah,
So I think they
Netflix
probably
did that.
wanted to do that for the young audience because again, if they wanted to make it a lot more sexier, they could have, and it could have been a bit more horrific and not nearly as funny. I think they could have went with it that way. So unless there's like a director's cut out there floating around where they do the tone differently and they've cut the film separately. I don't see it, but I can definitely see where, like I say, the first half hour sets up where it could be that.
Yeah, I remember this when this movie came out. It was like all over social media works and everything, and people were promoting it. Some people did not like it whatsoever. There's always gonna be those people, Nothing wrong. If you hate a movie, that's you hate a movie. But if
Yeah.
you hate several movies, then you're just a hater.
Yeah, this is certainly no erotic thriller that like we've talked about
No, no.
before on some of our top 10 Tuesdays. Typically they're like a Brian De Palma type film or any of like the Italian horror films that we've mentioned briefly um, that are out there, or something that has like say Asia Argento in it more recently. It's definitely not that kind of film. Don't go in there thinking that it is. You will be disappointed.
If you want a better movie than this, watch Tales from the Crypt of Bordello of Blood.
It's almost a little tongue in cheek like that, kind of. But you know that
Yeah,
with
yeah,
Tales from the Crypt going in. Yeah, I agree.
yeah,
It's not
yeah.
dark like Creepshow. Creepshow's kind of dark in some scenes, but you're talking about a different one from the 90s.
Angie Everhart, man, how can you pass that up?
Apparently, a lot of people haven't. So, I'll let Angie tell that story. All right, for the doctor, for myself, and for In Spirit E, who is not here this evening, I'd like to say good night, and as always, stay extreme. Doctor,
Stay alive and stay extreme. Keep on kicking it. Wait,
this is not kicking it, sir. This is a
sorry.
Too Extreme Horror Show, which
All
we're
right.
fishing for the official music. I'll just say toodles.
Later, guys.
Good night, everybody. Take care. And if you do watch this film, let me know. Put some comments in there. Smash that like button. Smash the whatever. Retweet the tweets. And then we'll see you
I mean,
Tuesday night
just
for more.
I was just gonna say, just murder that light bike. Don't smash it. Murder that.
That's right. I'm going to be babysitting my Twitter feed later tonight to see what happens. Good night, everybody.